Here's PBS NewsHour says Biden to show solidarity with striking UAW workers in historic move. Washington, it looks like they're using the AP's reporting here. President Joe Biden's decision to stand alongside United Auto Workers pickets on Tuesday, on the 12th day of their strike against major car makers, underscores an allegiance to labor unions that appears to be unparalleled in presidential history. That's a little bit butt kissy. I wouldn't call Biden as having an allegiance to labor unions. If that was the case, he should reject funding that he receives, bribe money that he receives from industries that are anti-worker. He doesn't have allegiance. This guy has allegiance to his stupid legacy. That's why he's insisting on running for office again, even though he said he was going to be a bridge to another person back during the campaign in 2019, 2020. Going on here, experts in presidential and U.S. labor history say they cannot recall an instance when a sitting president has joined an ongoing strike, even during the 10 years of the most ardent pro-union presidents such as Franklin. Oh God, shit. My blue light, I think, is good for the shot, but it's like little LEDs that are bright in my head here. So, that's fucks up my shot. But okay, I'm gonna turn this one down too. A little better. God, man, I need to join some autistic groups or something where I can talk with other autistic people about how much it fucking sucks. That's oversimplified. Yeah, but the light thing, just the way it's just like it's like somebody putting their hand on a piece of paper that you're trying to read. It's like, what do you stop? I can't. So then my thoughts get all jumbled up. That's a pretty good. I never thought of it like that. That's not bad. Okay, sorry. Experts in presidential labor history say they cannot recall an instance when a sitting U.S. president has joined an ongoing strike, even during the tenures of the more ardent pro-union presidents such as Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Harry Truman. Theodore Roosevelt invited labor leaders alongside mine operators to the White House amid a historic coal strike in 1902, a decision that was seen at the time as a rare embrace of unions as Roosevelt tried to resolve the dispute. Roosevelt was probably too busy doing push-ups in Cuba with the Rough Riders. So the previous closest was Roosevelt inviting labor leaders to the White House, alongside the mine operators, they call them, the owners, the extraction owners, the mine boy. During that time period, they were still doing contract leasing. I haven't finished the book, but Slavery by Another Name. This really interesting book about the period after the Civil War through the 50s, pretty much, but where they would just arrest people for vagrancy, and then the government would, loan, sell, rent, work, and labor to the company that. So the book is based around a guy named Green Cottenham who died. He got arrested for vagrancy and ended up working in a mine for U.S. Steel Corporation and was killed. There was lots of deaths involved, and this is just legalized slavery. We never got rid of slavery in America. We nationalized it. We turned it into something that is a product of the by criminalizing people, by applying the label criminal, you can then force them to be a slave. That's in the Constitution. That's still part today, right now. Slavery is completely legal in America. It's not modern slavery. It's fucking slavery. But we stopped allowing plantations and private ownership, although that took a long time to actually go away in the South and in areas where that was happening. But then it just became this process of the government imposing that. They nationalized it. And so I'm just thinking about the time that Roosevelt was president during a coal strike in 1902. That's when the Pinkertons and the Union Busters were coming at you with guns. And there was a lot of people killed because they didn't want to have their lives ruined and racked by mine operators, by extractive vampires of capitalism. The people that were employing children, that were just wrecking small bodies, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Child labor was very common in America. It's like the mendacity of it, to act like the capitalists are the reasons that anything got better in the world, is just fucking stunning to me. They resisted every single stage of improvement. They wanted those kids working in those mines. They wanted these convicts, people that they labeled criminal, to be made available for their labor. where all kinds of horrific abuses occurred. So anyway, keep going on here. God, it's just fucking crazy that Biden is the first one. Biden will be arriving one day before former President Donald Trump. The front runner for the 2024 Republican nomination goes to Detroit to hold his own event in an attempt to woo automakers, even though union leaders say he's no ally. So, yeah, we saw that already. Here is a headline from, actually, I don't know what paper. This looks like New York Times. This one I've been seeing around. Trump to woo striking union members in Detroit, skipping second GOP debate. Now, that's not true. This is a completely incorrect, misleading headline. Trump is using the situation to counter-program against the debate and to try to pretend that he gives a shit about workers, but he's organizing, this whole thing is being organized by a Right to Work Foundation, the National Right to Work Foundation, which is the states passed right to work laws, which basically are, they're not basically, they're anti-union, they're anti-worker laws that give more power to employers as far as what kind of protections workers have on their jobs. Alex Press is a very, she's a writer, does a lot of stuff on the left and stuff. And so she covers labor stuff. So we're just looking at a tweet here that is screenshotted. But in this event is being conducted with scabs, people who are not union workers. And it's like 50 miles away. It's at some factory that's owned by a place called Drake, which is something I saw. I'm doing a terrible job telling you what's going on. A like parts manufacturer or something like that. Because one thing you got to remember about the auto industry is that every single replacement part that your mechanic puts in your car has to be built. I majored in supply chain management, and I majored in industrial distribution management in college. That was what I studied. That was my thing. I can go on and on about that. Doesn't make me an expert in any of this, but like there's a whole lot of chains of material of production and supply chain shit that we don't even realize. It's not just the people who make the car itself. It's all the parts that go into making the car, all the parts that go into servicing the cars. The secondary parts market is gigantic. So Trump is there. So I clicked the wrong thing, but the media is completely misrepresenting what's actually happening with Trump. Here is, oh wait, no. Okay. So when it was brought up, this was actually a few days ago, September 19th, tweet from Luis Feliz Leon. He says, breaking, Shawn Fain clears the record on Donald Trump's billionaire demagoguery. That's billionaire class talk intended to confuse and distract. Boss tactics. And of course, the media goes right along with it. Statement from UAW President Shawn Fain and Donald Trump. Every fiber of our union is poured into fighting the billionaire class and an economy that enriches people like Donald Trump at the expense of workers. We can't keep electing billionaires and millionaires that don't have any understanding what it is like to live paycheck to paycheck and struggle to get by, and expecting them to solve the problems of the working class. So he was, I don't know if you'd say that's rejecting precisely, but it's a pretty strong statement that they're not interested in Donald Trump's support. No, but if you're misled enough, I was going to say stupid enough or fooled enough, but if you think Trump in any way is a credible source on, first of all, he's not credible on what he thinks. He comes off as being authentic because he's got that narcissistic power of saying things that his narcissism makes him believe, which is why his lies sound like he's telling the truth. But he is not credible on what he believes on anything. And the media goes right along with it generally. And unfortunately though, and much to the Democrats' own doing, being led by cretins like Biden and Pelosi and Schumer, especially Pelosi and Schumer, they don't do themselves any favors in trying to represent themselves as an alternative to the Republicans. Republicans love this false bravado of being for workers. That's never been the case. Here's the Economic Policy Institute headline: unprecedented. The Trump NLRB's attack on workers' rights. Report by Celine McNichols, Margaret Poydock, and Lynn Reinhardt, October 16, 2019. Introduction. I'm not going to get into all this. It's just the last stuff, but I just skimmed the first couple paragraphs here. Under the Trump administration, the National Labor Relations Board has systematically rolled back workers' rights to form unions and engage in collective bargaining with their employers to the detriment of workers, their communities, and the economy. This is, like, as I've been saying, something that benefits workers, communities, and the economy. You can set the economy in its own category here, obviously, but things that benefit workers and communities and overall would shift the economy to its benefit and all of ours are threatening to the owners. Just a very, very, very simple truth and simple fact that our system, in order for the people who don't need help, who have all the money, who have all the power, because they have ownership, which is their privileged access to violence and state enforcement, the things that benefit them hurt workers, hurt communities, hurt the economy. And that's the system that we've all been taught to defend and uphold. It's so fucking gross, but it's laid out so simply. Somebody who wants to just collect their dividend check for doing nothing, their check might be slightly smaller if a worker can save a little bit of money so they can afford an emergency. And that's the system we have. We're supposed to be proud of. We're supposed to continue this. And by the way, it's contributing to the destruction of the planet from this, maniacal overconsumption driven by individualistic selfishness, societal programming. I listened to a couple of Adam Curtis interviews in the last week. The Trump board has issued a series of significant decisions weakening worker protections under the National Labor Relations Act, NLRA/Act. Further, the board has engaged in an unprecedented number of rulemakings aimed at overturning existing worker protections. Finally, the Trump NLRB General Counsel has advanced policies that leave fewer workers protected by the NLRA and has advocated for changes in the law that roll back workers' rights. So don't ever think that the Republican Party is the party of labor, the party of regular workers. A lot of people have been tricked into maybe thinking that. And I've actually seen comments like regulations, like, well, that's what is good about the, all these regulations and the EPA and, these kind of like familiar boogeymen that they often refer to. Regular ass people suggesting that those are the reasons why people can't get good jobs because of all these regulations. It's nonsense. I'm not saying every single regulation is exactly perfect. These things should be negotiated in good faith within a society that cares about how it operates. But the anti-regulation fervor in this country is driven by right-wing and conservative and conservative liberals too, conservative Democrats like Pelosi, such and such, like those types. But very much on the Republican side, that stuff is just ways of favoring the bosses so they can pollute more, so that they can hurt more. We're going to get into some of that with the child labor protections that have been going on. The Trump board and general counsel have elevated corporate interests above those of working men and women and have routinely betrayed the statute that they are responsible for administering and enforcing. This paper highlights the most egregious actions of the Trump board and GC, that's general counsel, and evaluates the impact on working people. It is critical that Congress hold the Trump NLRB accountable and that policymakers prioritize legislative reforms that will restore the original promise of our nation's labor law to encourage and promote the formation of unions and the practice of collective bargaining. So don't be fooled by any of this. And speaking of that,